Welcome back to JJ's Workshop. Today we're going to be working on a really sweet bird house slash bird feeder. What's really cool about this is it's got like a barn-like design to it, kind of rugged slash antique. But what's really cool about this unique bird house is the structure and how it's going to be made and how you fill it. So get ready. Check it out on this JJ's Workshop episode.
Okay, so what I got here is two 1x6 pieces that are cut to 14 inches. Now the funny thing about a 1x6 is they're not quite 6 inches wide, they're not quite 1 inch thick. They're only 3/4 thick and 5.5 wide. Well, this particular board happens to be 5 3/8, so I cut it down. Well, I got my mark in the center here at 2 and a heavy 5/8, so that's a 1/16 over 5/8 to mark my center. So I'm going to do my 45s and then we will get to our sides. Okay, so here I got marked out the center for a opening door that we're going to use that will, I guess you could say, store the food and drop it down on the food side. So I'll have to show you how all this is going to work later on in the video as we assemble it. Okay, so it's not cut out perfect, but that's alright because we're going to put a door and a little latch on there. So we'll get to that a little later. Right now I just got done cutting two of these sides down. And what I did was I measured from this point to that point, which after squaring up to 45 came out to about 11 1/4. If you're making one of these, just measure from point here to point up here and then make sure you're 45 straight, and that is going to be your sides.
This next part is a little more tricky. I discovered, and luckily for you, I'm discovering a lot of this before I get too far in advance. Lucky for me too. I need to 45 this angle so it runs perpendicular with the roof. So what I did was I took my chop saw and tilted it on a 45. Now what you want to do is you want to make sure that the blade just touches the top edge. Okay? If you do not do that, you're going to end up with a botched up 45. Okay? So, I know it's kind of hard to see, but it's got to go just below that top edge. And if you did it right, it should look like that. Okay, so basically what we're going to do here is you got to line your 45 up with your top. Okay, and if it's a little off, it's okay as long as it lines up at the bottom for the base later on, but you preferably want that lined up as good as you can get it. So I think what I'm going to end up doing here is doing some adjustment on this. Just kind of slide it forward. Now that it's been clamped for a second, it doesn't like to move very well. So let's just get this thing lined up as well as you can with the roof. You got to move it around, but make sure you glue up your seam really well. It's birdhouse, it's going to be outside in the elements. I got a little bit of glues and out the back, that's cool. I got a 1/16 inch drill bit right here. Drilling some pilot holes for small screws. Okay, so these small screws are 1.5 inches. Pretty small. I can't remember if they were 16s or whatnot, but they're pretty small. They're zinc plated. Screw them in. Do not over-sink your screws. Remember, it's only 3/4 inch wide material. You can split this stuff very easily. There. So we got our two sides and our back on, and just basically put the front on this inside edge, glue it up real good, and we'll go on to the next part of the birdhouse.
Okay, so what I did was I left one side off to show you a couple of things. Now, basically, because this can happen to anybody, I didn't get these 45s quite perfect. Since I'm actually painting this, I'm not too worried about it. I'll silicone it. If I was staining it, I'd disassemble it and even up the sides. So it's that simple. Now, on to more complicated things. I took a piece, I measured this, okay, from side to side, width and length, and then basically what I did was I cut a piece and I put it on about a 35-degree angle, so it created this little deal. Now what I'm going to do right here is I'm actually going to add another little board to that to kind of help further the angle. I'll show you that when it's done. But I'm cutting a hole in this side and building like a little, I guess you can call it a lean-to type thing, where the seed, when you pour the seed in here, it falls out and it'll go down here into the side. Because I plan on screening some of this in. Try to make it so just the birds are eating the food and not the squirrels. On the other side, underneath this compartment is where there's going to be another little lean-to, and that will be the birdhouse itself, where I guess you'd call it lodging is. So, oh, another note. If you come up against a knot, do not screw into that. Basically what I did was I just brought this up and then kept one down here, glued this bottom edge, and I added a little bit of glue to the side edge. And since this was open, once again, I'm siliconing that, I'm painting it, no one's ever gonna know. So, okay, so on this next part, we're actually going to be adding the room, one of the rooms. You know, you could actually do a second one if you wanted, but this I made, obviously I screwed up because I forgot that I did a 22.5-degree angle for the pitch of this roof, and when I cut this I accidentally 45'd it. So since I'm actually going to paint this one, it doesn't really matter. I just caulked it shut, so you really shouldn't notice it much. I went through and caulked some of the seams. I gotta do a little more touch up on this so it doesn't show up with the paint, but this is going to attach to that side just like that, and then the side obviously is where the hole will be. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch dowel, so I'll drill that out. And over here on this side is where the actual feeder is going to be. Remember, you have this hole down in here, and you don't have to worry about the food coming through and hitting them because you got that sealed off with a board. So what's going to happen here is you could actually drill out a hole here and then put in a floorboard right there, and birds have an extra apartment. Or if you're worried about bothering them while you're putting the food in, you can drill out the hole in the back. So from here, as you can see, it's a little off. These boards, I got a standard board and they're very warped. So really no big deal. I kept it all towards the back. I'll probably make the front apartment instead of the back, because I just remembered I got a 2x4 I'm screwing into. That's going to be holding this up. So next I cut my plexiglass. I used a couple of these scrap triangles that were cut from the angles up here to just make those little wedges. So as you can see, it holds it up just high enough here where feed can fall down through. Okay, so I basically wrapped this up, but I'm going to go over this real quick with you. I put a piece of glass in here. As you can see, it's still wedged up so stuff can come down through. I got a food catch here for the birds to perch on. There is another apartment here in the center. Right here, I made this out of a piece of mahogany. I just thought it'd be a really cool looking barn door. You open it up and you pour it down through there and it lands over here. Just like I was showing you in the other video how to make the elevation, and that way there, when you fill up the food up here, it'll slowly keep falling down until it's empty. That way there, you don't have anything sitting towards the back. And on the side here, I added another house. So what I'm going to do is, I got a 2x4 that I put in the ground a couple years ago. I had a little red barn I made, a lot different design than this, and I'm going to replace that because I made it quite cheaply with the roof. The roof's falling apart. I'm thinking I kind of don't like the spray paint, so I think maybe in the fall when the birds are done, I'll probably just get some oil base or something, outdoor paint, to touch it up. But there you have it. Just a simple old school looking barn birdhouse. Now one more thing you can do too is, if you want to make it look more aged and antiqued, you can put your base coat down for the color you want. Then what you do is you take an old clear wax candle, a white candle, whatever, and you basically just kind of rub spots. Okay, just kind of make a mess of it, rub it a little bit, but don't cover the whole thing. Then what you do is you spray like a brown or a gray over it and let that dry. And the spots that have the wax on it won't dry, so you can wipe those off when it dries, and then you have something that looks aged. So once again, thank you for checking us out here on JJ's Workshop, and there will be more projects coming.